Good morning. My name is Mark Boreski. I will be chairing the panel today. I'd like to call the meeting to order to acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 41st Nation in Treaty 3 territory. With me on the panel today are Marla Billinghurst and Gisela Rempel. The assessor today is Drew Thiessen, and administrative assistance is being provided today by Nicole Carnegie. To the Zoom participants in the hearing, please note you're placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg's Board of Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You'll receive the Board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We'll be hearing items 2 and 5 through 8 on our docket today. Ms. Carnegie, could you please affirm the assessor and the applicants?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Heshka, I'm just going to put you in the waiting room until your item is called.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Kovalina.
Yes.
Oh, actually, give me 1 second. I'm going to do Mr. Thiessen first. Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Drew Thiessen.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Ms. Kovalina, please state your full name.
Vera Kovalina.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, our first item then that we'll be dealing with is item number 2 on the docket, and that is 422 Kent Road. The assessor goes first with his or her evidence. So, Mr. Thiessen, could you present us with your evidence on this property?
Absolutely, thank you. So the subject property is located at 422 Kent Road, roll number 14081433000. It's located in the East Elmwood neighborhood. It's a one-story build, single-family dwelling built in 1955. Has a living area of 919 square feet. It's built on a slab foundation, so it does not have basement finish because it cannot have basement finish. Has 1 full bathroom, has central air conditioning, has a detached single car garage as well as a detached multi-car garage. The lot size is 8313 square feet, and it has land influences of commercial adjacent and a rail line. The commercial adjacent is for a row house complex that is behind the property that you can see in the map. That is the white area there. The subject did sell in the reference period prior to April 1st of 2023. So it sold on June 15th of 2021 for $302,000. The time adjusted sale price of that sale is $304,000. The comparables are all also located in the East Elmwood neighborhood. They are all one-story builds except for Comp 4, which is a raised bungalow bi-level. They're all single-family dwellings built between 1955 and 2000 for the Comp 4. Actually, all three of the first comps are built in 1955. The living area ranges between 796 square feet to 912 square feet. Two of the comps are built on full basements, and both of them do have finished basements as well, and that would be comps 2 and 4. The other two, comp 1 and 3, are both built on slab foundations, as the subject is as well. They all have one full bathroom. Comp 4 also has an extra half bathroom. They all do have central air conditioning. Comp 2 has a fireplace that none of the other properties do. And they all have detached garages, but they only have one detached garage, with Comp 1 having a single and the rest having multi-car garages. The lot sizes range between 3,294 square feet to 6,000 square feet. And they all do have various land influences. So Comp 1, being in the next door neighbor, has the same row house commercial adjacent influence. Comp 2 has backing onto a community club, and Comp 3 backs onto a park. Comp 4 backs onto a school area. The time adjusted sale prices range between $261,600 to $332,900. And time adjusted sale prices per square foot range between $286.84 per square foot to $387.91 per square foot. I will note as well that basically all of the comps except for Comp 2 kind of do back onto the same rail line, just a little bit further away. The rail line on that comp map does show as like the white line that goes kind of across the entire thing in the middle. So the current assessed value is $300,000 or $326.44 per square foot, and I believe that value is supported. Thank you.
Ms. Covalina, do you have questions for the assessor about this?
I actually
effort that he
do,
has
yeah.
presented?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. My first question was about the comparison for why it was selected, because I don't see any relevance in anything that can be compared to in terms of the size, in terms of the year built, sales price, and to the subject property.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Ms. Kovalina, but are you able to turn on your video?
I would prefer to stay off camera if possible. I have a disability and I will prefer to stay off camera. Is it okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, again, I was requiring an answer on my previous question in order to know why was the property comparable for was selected. If it's, from my perspective, it has nothing that could be compared to my property.
Yeah, with that comparable, it is not the best comparable that I have by far. It does have the full basement. It has the finished basement. It is a newer build, where the other properties have had upgrades similar to the subject property. This one is basically like a new build in the sense that it has the same kind of upgrade type thing, but it is actually just a new build. So that's kind of why I chose that one. And being in the neighborhood was another key factor for that.
Thank you. Could you also confirm when was the last permit taken for the subject matter property, please?
I don't actually have that information in front of me, but if you give me one moment.
Sure.
So the last permit I can see that was pulled was in 2018.
So you acknowledge that the last permit was taken prior to the purchase date?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. As well, I have a question about the effective year built. I did my research and found out that it's probably the tool you're using to put some characteristics in order to determine the more accurate age based on the improvements that have been made for a property, if I'm correct?
Yeah.
And in terms of subject property, could you please explain why the effective age is 50 years younger than the actual year built? So 1955 and 1995. From my perspective, this is with any improvement that could be done to the property, 50 years cannot be wiped out of the picture. It's still built in 1955 in terms of the size of the rooms, size property, materials being used, structural, etc. So could you please explain what the 1995 year is based on? Thank you.
Yeah. So there was a complete upgrade to the house. The flooring was updated, the kitchen was updated, the bathrooms were updated, the trim was updated. It's now an open concept area. The electrical was updated, siding was updated on the exterior, insulation was updated, and yeah, so it's basically a complete reno.
In terms of the updates, as far as I know, this home was purchased not from the actual owner, from the estate. The previous owner passed away prior to the day of purchase. And in terms of me looking for the permits, all the updates that been made of are related to the fire that's been on this property, and permits were taken specifically for renovating the area affected of that fire. Fire was minor and affected only one corner of the property. Do you have it on your assessment? Why this was not discussed during your presentation, that there was a big factor on this property, it was under the fire?
Because I would be looking majorly at the renovations that have occurred related to that permit. So there's a full renovation of the house related to that permit or after that permit. So prior to your purchase, so as the current the property currently stands, there has been a major renovation to the property.
Prior to the day of purchase. Okay.
Prior to your purchase, yes.
Okay, and I was trying to find this public sources. I was not able. So I want to confirm that in 2020, the assessment value was 248,000. Is it correct?
In what year? Sorry.
2020 or 2021. I'm not sure which year was the assessment. So I have 300 right now, 289 was in 2022. And in 2020, what was the assessment value?
I don't really see how that's pertinent for what we're discussing today.
I'm just trying to see how the assessment was different prior to the renovations and after.
Well, I don't have that information in front of me because I wouldn't think it would be pertinent to the current assessed value that we are discussing.
We're assessing my property, right? So I'm trying to find out what was the assessment value. If you find it not relevant, I can leave it there. The last question I have, from the all properties that you selected for comparison, I see that all the properties have the lower adjusted market value comparing to the sales price. So you acknowledge that the market value went down comparing to the sales price in the assessment period?
It depends on when the sales were, but in the case of these sales, yes. So there was a change in the market. All the time adjusted sale prices are lower than the actual sale prices.
Thank you. Yeah, that was all my questions.
Ms. Ramble, do you have questions for the assessor?
I am curious about the lot size, because it seems to me that the lot size is a lot larger than any of your other comparisons.
Yeah.
I'm also wondering if you could tell me which you think is the most suitable comparison to this particular property.
So the most suitable comparison to this property would be the subject sale at 302,000. Secondary would be the next door neighbor at 426 Kent. However, with that sale, it is significantly smaller. It lacks the second garage, and it is a significantly smaller lot size as well.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all my questions.
I'm sorry, I missed, which comp did you say was the best one?
The subject sale.
Subject sale itself.
Yeah.
Out of it, but her question was with the comps.
Well, I mean, I would consider the subject sale also a comp. But if we're looking at the four comparables that I have there, then I would say comp one with a 426 Kent. But considering that there are the differences in square footage, in the garages, the lack of the second garage, as well as in the lot size.
My questions have been answered.
It would appear from the amounts that you show as the adjusted sale price per square foot, that the ones with full basements are significantly higher than the ones on slab.
Mhm.
But is that attributable largely to the fact that they have a full basement, or are there other factors at play as well that you could really draw the conclusion that the full basement has been really significant here?
Yeah, I would expect that the full basement and the fact that they have finished basements in those full basements would absolutely increase the value in the market.
And the railway line that is behind the subject,
Yep.
is that an active railway line or abandoned?
I believe it's active. I'm not 100% sure though.
And so then you also don't know how active it is.
No, I don't.
So you've got a land influence, commercial adjacent and the rail line. What amount of adjustment is made because of those factors?
Well, as I was kind of mentioning previously, all of these comparables, except for comp 2, do kind of back onto that rail line in a way as well, with just kind of some green space in between them. And especially with the comparable right beside, it does back onto basically the same rail line. It's just a smaller, a little bit larger area between the rail line and the property.
So the subject is more or less a pie-shaped lot. Fact that there is more width at the back, is that a significant factor in what the market looks for?
I'm sorry, the fact that there is more.
Well, the lot is much wider at the back. There's more space at the back. I mean, it's a larger lot, but also much more width. Is that a significant factor in the market, or are people really discounting the land there, particularly in that market, and just going with what is the house and the house contents?
Well, it would result in the lot size being significantly larger, which is the case here. So I would expect that would be a contributing factor right there. Pie lots do tend to have a little bit higher a value to them, but it is also related to the fact that they usually have more area.
Okay, those are my questions. Ms. Colina, could we have your evidence, please?
Yeah. So first of all, coming to the date of purchase, home was purchased 2021 during the inflated market. Let's leave it there, during the COVID time. Because all the bidding wars and situation we had in my family, we were still decided to purchase the home during that time to secure a lower interest rate. So when we purchased the home for 302,000, we took in consideration that we are overpaying for the property, and it's not the actual market value at the date of purchase either today. We did it for our personal purposes, and we planning to sell this home in the future. the unfair and from my perspective, unclear assessment that is going up and up is not representing the current market value of my property and the referred period, and as well is not is a significant disadvantage for those who potential buyers who will be buying the property in the future. Taking only facts into consideration, I noticed that the market adjusted value is going down for the near properties and recent sales during the subject period. It's visible from my statement, from my evidence, and from the presenter. From the assessor side, the market went down, and it's a fact. However, for unclear reasons for me, the market adjusted value for my property, instead of going down, went up. The railway line, there is no, it's a pie shape lot. So the rail line is on the north from my property on the wider side. It's not only not abandoned, it's an active two-line rail line. And if we will be lucky enough, we could hear the trains going 24/7. It's lots of vibration that potentially can cause also structural damage on my property. In terms of the permits and renovations, it's all been done prior to the date we purchased the home. There was an attic fire, to the best of my knowledge, and the owners prior to the owner who we purchased the home from, they did the renovations related to fixing the damage from the fire. Again, I purchased the home from the estate. The previous owner passed away. I don't have concrete information on that side. Only information I can rely is the permits. So all permits been taken in 2018. When we purchased the home, I believe based on the new purchase price, we received a reassessment for 289,000, and this year for 300. So the first assessment for 299,000, we found it fair. It was related to the new sales price, market change. There were renovations done. We took it as it is. We kind of expected that the increase may come. I'm currently questioning, and the reason I applied for this board is that I'm questioning the most recent assessment. So from the date we received the prior assessment in 2022 to this year's assessment, there were no improvements done to the property. We haven't built anything, we haven't demolished anything, no renovation, no rewiring, installations, nothing been done, no permits were taken. So I'm not asking to lower it, I don't know, for 50,000. It's not fair, it's not representing the market. I'm asking from my perspective to leave it in the amount that was in 2022 for 289,000, which is just 11,000 lower from the assessment I received this year for 2025. I tried to compare the properties. I will acknowledge it's quite hard because the property we own has some specific characteristics. We don't have a basement. We have a rail line. It's a big factor. We have double garages. I think 2 garages, one multiple and one single. One single, because of the lack of the space in the home, is mainly used for just storaging. We are not using it primarily, but it's not really relevant. Double garages cannot overcome the fact of the location of the property. From my perspective, I'm not an assessor and I'm not selling homes. The thing from my perspective as potential purchaser, the 2 garages are still not overlaying the factor that it's in commercial area as well as an extremely heavy rail line behind the property. Condition of the home is, of course, it's renovated to the point where they were trying to fix the fire damage. So nothing out there. When I was trying to compare, of course, the closest comparison is comparison number 1, right? It's the neighbors next door. So it's 426 Kent Road. It's just basically the home next door to us. Their sales price was 315,000, but the market adjusted value went down for 30,000 and now it's at 284. So I was looking for comparison that was presented by the assessor, comparison number 3. It's also quite relevant, 1955 built, quite the same size property and some characteristics. They also close to the railway line. I need to acknowledge the purchase price 265, adjusted market value again went down 261. So applied to review the information I provide. Of course, I found that market changed, and in terms of assessment, we're only looking for assessment of my property. I cannot for process I understood, I cannot rely on the assessment of other properties. My assessment went up twice, which is not, I believe, represent the fair market value of my property. And if the property need to be sold at the subject period, I will say it will not be able to be sold in that amount. Thank you.
Very much. Mr. Thiessen, question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. So based on the information you supplied in your brief, it appears that you're basing your proposed assessed value that you want to get at the 289,000 based off of the assessed values of the two comparables you provided and not the actual time adjusted sale prices or even the unadjusted sale prices. Is that right?
Sorry, could you repeat it again, please?
Yeah, so based on the information in your brief, it looks like you're looking at the assessed values of the sales that you provided, not the actual sale prices or time adjusted sale prices.
I was looking for time adjusted prices. You know, this whole process, I understood while I was preparing for this meeting today that when I was doing my comparison, I didn't really understood the process. I was more relying on the assessed value than on the market value. So I want to correct myself on that. But when let me just pull up really quick my assessment. I also, I will be relying more on the market adjusted value, to be honest, because it went down. Assessment value cannot be assessed. We cannot compare the homes based on that criteria, from my understanding. So I will leave it there. I will compare only the market adjusted value, which went down for the property next to my home. So next door property.
Okay, and you acknowledge that there are fairly significant differences between your property and the property next door?
I will acknowledge only the lot size, slightly smaller. We affected by the same factors and the fact that I have one extra garage. The conditions is the same. If you look on the yeah, pretty sure you have access to their advertisement and the realtors. From the realtor's perspective, the conditions of the home is quite similar. I cannot talk to other property, but the conditions inside of the home in terms of renovations, quite similar. The lot size is smaller, yes, and there is they only have, to the best of my knowledge, a single garage.
And also 120 square feet less living area, right?
I do, yeah.
No, they have 120 square feet less.
From what I recall, there's a smaller home, I believe. I cannot say exactly to how many. I will not ready to calculate it this moment.
It's on my brief. It's 120 square feet, roughly.
Okay.
And then for the sale price of 327 Keenly side that you mentioned, the time adjusted for that was actually 318,000. Is that correct?
From their perspective, yes, but I was looking for the sales price that is closer. I didn't realize I need to show you the homes that were in the same conditions but cheaper. I was fairly looking for the sales price close and how their assessment, again, I was comparing them based on the assessment value, right? So I was looking for the comparably similar sales price and significantly lower assessment value. So it's a mistake from my side. But speaking to the properties that you compare, we can also see a high correlation that the market adjusted value went down to all the properties you presented and not to the mine.
Right, but the one that you did, the 327 Keenly side, did actually increase the time in the
It's
time adjusted.
yes, but there's a basement there. They are not affected, as I mentioned in my statement. They are not affected by the rail line. They're facing the park, I believe, or the way quieter street. They have a full basement, which is a significant factor from the sailing perspective, as you can agree, right?
Yeah, I did mention that previously. So yeah.
Mhm.
And as you mentioned, going through your brief, that you were comparing to my comp 3, were
Mhm.
you aware that that property has less upgrades than your property does?
I don't have access to this. It's not a publicly posted information. How can I do that?
I was just asking.
I'm not aware. I missed that. The home was sold after our property, so we stopped looking for the advertisements, and checking the quality, etc. I couldn't find anything on public sources, so I only rely on the information that is public. It's the same size. It's quite the same lot. I think it's the biggest from what you presented. Still not quite a big as here, but my lot is a pipe shape. It's facing the rail line. The home that you're referring to, comparison 3, it's close to the rail line, but it's not as close. They still have a significantly bigger distance between the back lane and the rail line. I see the trains from my window right now.
Okay. And just to confirm, you did purchase the property on June 15th of 2021 for 302,000.
It was purchased. I'm not sure why they're referring to the June. It was the possession day was at the end of May, but maybe in terms of documentation, that's what they put as a registration date. But
Yeah,
yes,
that
it
would
was
be the register date.
purchased. It was purchased in 2021. The possession day was the end of May.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Billy Hurst, do you have questions?
No, that question's been answered.
Ms. Maple, do you have questions?
I just have one. I'm wondering, it says that you have a commercial adjacent property. What is that commercial property?
Is the question to me or to the assessor?
It's to you.
I'm not aware of what this terminology means. I think the assessor was referring to the commercial. I think the city or it's a privately owned. There is on our back lane there is a commercial building where I think it's like a storage. It's facing one of our garages, but I'm not aware what I honestly saw there's always a City of Winnipeg property that somehow maintain the rail line, but I think assessor can give more information on what type of this.
Thank you. That's my only question.
Mr. Thiessen, could you answer that question?
Yeah, as I mentioned previously, it's for the row house block. It's a block of row houses in that white space. It's filled in by commercial row housing.
Thank you.
And I have no questions. Therefore, that concludes this matter. Thank you very much, Ms. Kovalina, for coming and giving us your information. We will be deliberating later on this morning, arriving at a conclusion, and we will provide you with an order in the mail as soon as we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kovalina.
Our next one is item number 5 on the docket. Do we have applicants?
No, we do not have an applicant present for 126 Spring Meadow Crescent.
Okay, so we will put that one down to the bottom of our docket to see if the person appeared. And we will go on to item number 6, meeting Beachside Bay. Do we have an applicant for that one?
No, Mr. Chair, we have no applicant present for 80 Beachside Bay.
We'll put that one down to the bottom of the docket, sorry, as well. That brings us to item number 7. 215 Philip Lee Drive.
Yes.
And we do have a person by Zoom, correct?
Correct. I am just admitting Mr. Heshka. Hi, Mr. Heshka. Can you hear us okay? We just have you muted. Oh, there you go.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm just going to affirm you before we get started, Mr. Heshka. Please state your full name.
Full name is Les Heshka.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Assessor, could you give us your evidence on this property, please?
Yes, thank you. So the subject property is located at 215 Philip Lee Drive in the Peguis neighborhood, roll number 040072534005. It is a one-story build, single-family dwelling built in 2016 with a living area of 1548 square feet. It has a full basement that is a lookout basement. So it has the ability with larger windows to look out onto the pond in the back area. It has a finished basement. It has 3 full bathrooms and 1 shower. It has central air conditioning. It has a fireplace, an attached multi-car garage, and the lot size is 4963 square feet. It also has, as I was mentioning previously, the retention pond influence. So there is a walkway in between the build and the pond that is behind the house. The comparables are all located in the Peguis neighborhood, except for Comp 4, which is in the Grassy neighborhood, just to the north. And they are all one-story builds, single-family dwellings built between 2009 to 2018. Living areas between 1325 square feet to 1510 square feet. They all have full basements. None of them are lookouts. They all have finished basements, and the bathroom counts vary slightly, as shown on the comp sheet there. They all have central air conditioning. One of them does not have a fireplace, and that would be Comp 3. The rest all do. They all have attached multi-car garages, and the lot sizes range between 4726 square feet to 5905 square feet. Comps 2 and 3 do not have any land influences at all, where comps 1 and 4 both have the retention pond influence, and then comp 4 also has heavy traffic influence. The time adjusted sale prices range between 562,900 to 611,400. And the time adjusted sale prices per square foot range between 377.62 per square foot to 440.53 per square foot. And the current assessed value is at 570,000 or 368.22 per square foot. I believe that value is supported, and I have nothing further. Thank you.
Mr. Heshka, do you have questions for the assessor?
I've actually for both, if that's okay. But one thing that came up, and I can substantiate it in the photo. I think you guys have all the evidence I submitted as well,
Yes.
or no?
Mhm.
So you've reviewed it, so I don't have to kind of go over those items
No,
again.
I would suggest that you go over the material succinctly,
Okay.
but please present it to us.
Okay, yeah. So the first thing I wanted to say to Drew was one of the comments he made is that from the lookout window that the pond is visible. It's actually not, because that basement is still below grade, so you can see out the window, but you cannot see the pond because it's too low in according to the elevation of my house. And there's a photo there to substantiate it. I guess looking at Drew's comparisons, I would have expected him substantiate that some 2023 sales. I don't see any of that. I've got 3 sales that are or all these sales are from 2022, and one of them isn't even in my neighborhood. And the time adjusted sale prices, these houses haven't been sold again. So this is, to me, this is a fictitious number.
Is
I mean,
there
if we look,
a question that you have for Mr. Thiessen?
well, I guess, well, the only question I had was like, or comment I had was about the pond, but I guess right now I'm kind of substantiating or trying to look at what his evidence is that to me doesn't substantiate his value.
Yeah, that's fine. Anything that you want to ask him about or to verify, essentially question, that's
Right.
fair at this point, then you can give your information.
Okay, yeah, so I'm ready for that. I don't dispute anything else he said other than the you know, his evidence for the value and the fact that I can't see my pond from the basement.
Okay, then I'll turn to the panel members to see if they have questions about this information. Ms. Billinghurst?
No, I do.
Questions? Ms. Rempel?
No, I have no questions. Thank you very much.
Let's be a second here for notes. And I have no questions. So then, Mr. Heshka, could you give us your presentation, please? Yes, we did receive your documentation, but please summarize it for us. And then there will be questions on that.
Okay, so it's my understanding that the house prices are based on 2023 values. So, sorry, I'm looking to the side here because I have another laptop going here. But if we look at housing in general from 21 to 23, with the mortgage rates, the housing prices are depressed. So because of the mortgage rates. So people aren't selling nearly like they used to. The prices have declined if you are selling because of the fact of the mortgage rates of the cost of the mortgages. There is a house, just to give you an example, there is a house on that's a few doors down from me at 223 Philip Lee Drive that sold for a substantial amount of money back in 22. That's when the housing market was going crazy. They actually had 5 offers on that house over list price at the time. Things have changed a lot from 22 to 24. So I know that Drew had presented the evidence here on these. He's used these 4 houses, but to me, they don't apply. The other house, the other part on house on 49 Angela Everett is a totally different comparison because that house faces houses that are 800,000 and up on the street. So, as I think we know, is if you've got a smaller house with larger homes, that it brings value to your existing home, even if it's not comparable to the houses across the street. I'm looking at houses across the street from me that are track housing. They're basically, most of them look the same, and right behind them are railway tracks that you can see the trains going by and making noise and shaking your house. So on Angela Everett, they don't have that sort of a situation there. But the other thing I was going to add that I have in my notes here is the addition of all the apartments and condos now surrounding our development over the last few years has exploded, which hurts the resale value of a single family dwelling. I don't know anybody that wants to get stuck in a area like this, surrounded by apartment blocks, condos, like multifamily developments, and versus a neighborhood where you've got more like kind of the same. We're kind of stuck in in the middle now, which wasn't like that when we bought the house. We're kind of stuck now in the middle of all this development of multifamily housing. So it's caused a huge traffic congestion in our area trying to get through on Peguis to reach my house and returning home. Congestion is always an issue, even off rush hour traffic trying to get onto Peguis. Traffic is lined up for 10 minutes trying to turn onto Peguis from Reindeers Road. Any other access off Concordia is the same. I've tried going down region further and then make a U-turn and come back up Pegasus that way. But now you've got the lineup of all the traffic going into Costco. So I'm not really saving any time there. The other issue that brings up whether it's worth anything or not is the crime rate in the area. After researching the city's crime rate, Transcona's crime rate's now listed in the city at Winnipeg as a class C minus, which most other areas are listed as a B minus. So that crime rate has gone up, which I know for my neighbors with stuff missing out of their backyards. There's no schools in the immediate area for small children. I think I put down about the railway tracks. That hasn't been listed. Drew sent a map of where my house is located, but it fails to state that across the street is railway tracks. It doesn't show that at all. As well, it doesn't show in one of my photos I submitted that the hydro station 5 doors down from my house, there's a picture there that I had sent that is whether it has anything to do with it, but it's the area isn't looked after. You can see how tall the grass is and the weeds 5 doors down from my house with a hydro station. Everybody knows hydro is a deterrent because of the cancer causing possibilities. That hasn't been stipulated. I also sent photos of the park not maintained. And if the retention pond is a plus, then have a look at the photos that I sent about the goose poop all over the place that happens in our yards on the sidewalk alongside the park. So anyway, those are things that I wanted to bring up. Besides homeless people now standing on the corner of Peguis and Reindeers that never used to be like that before all these multiple family housings came up. And then there was my purchase price back in 2019. There's never anything taken into consideration on circumstances, or all they look at is the sale price of the home. They had no idea that I bought a bunch of furniture with the house from the people that were moving out. They had no idea that I only had 3 weeks to move or to find a place to live because the fact my house was sold in West St. Paul and I was moving back into the city. And as well, Drew and I went back and forth with photos because he was very interested in these photos of my basement about this lookout basement, right? So we went back and forth. I sent multiple photos substantiating that because he was concerned that maybe I could make it into a walkout basement. I sent photos that you guys will have showing the height elevations. I actually used a measuring tape. I sent photos a few times showing a measuring tape from the elevation from the outside of the house to the elevation to the inside of the house, because you just can't make it into a walkout basement because you'd be in below grade. This is something that was a deterrent for me when I first bought the house, that I was thinking of not buying it because of that reason. But in the end, I ended up buying the home. But I did look into putting a walkout in there. Can't be done without a huge expense. The other thing is I don't have access to my backyard from inside my house. It's always been like that. I've got the front door. I've got to walk around the side of the home to go to the backyard. There's an upper deck there, but there's no access to the ground level. Sorry if I've got a million things I'm talking about here, but I think the biggest thing for me is the fact is that Drew hasn't presented evidence to substantiate the 14% increase in my assessment. I'm not an unreasonable person because my previous assessment was 500,000. They've upped it to 570 now, which is a 14% increase. I just feel like I'm okay with a bit. Like I think maybe looking at my stats, if you look at my stats when you're after the meeting of the average selling price in 2021 to 2023, you'll see where it's at. And I'm not unreasonable, but I think an assessment maybe of 525 maybe would be more suitable than 570. And I think that's about all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Thiessen, do you have questions about this information?
I do. Thank you. So first, Mr. Heshka, thank you for sending those photos. It really helped me in determining the actual build and that's the value. Now, regarding the multifamily complexes that you had mentioned, are you speaking about the ones at the end of Philip Lee to the east of you, or sorry, to the southwest of you? Because that's really all I could really see from reviewing the map near your area that has recently built multifamily.
I am surrounded now on three sides, on the west side, the south side, and the east side of my home, and along with east, south, and west. And on the west side, you also have the overpass of Highway 59 going over the just at the end of the development.
So these are not like right around your house. They're kind of
They directly affect me because they are right across Peguis. Some are on the west side of Peguis, and the other are on the east side of Peguis, which is rapidly developing there. Like if you've taken a drive by there, like
Okay.
if you go down Peguis now, it's pretty well solid. It's solid multifamily.
Okay. Were these present at April 1st of 2013 or 2023, sorry?
I think all but one, I think, on that's located on Peguis. Corner of Peguis and I'm not sure the name of the street. It's close to Prairie Crocus.
Okay. So would they have been present at the time of the sale of 223 Philip Lee? So that would have been in September of 2022.
I do not know.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure going back a couple of years.
Okay. So really the question I have kind of related to that is it safe to say that all of these issues that you've brought up would also affect your neighbor at 223 Philip Lee Drive?
Should, but you're talking a different time. You're talking a totally different time in real estate sales. When COVID was still around and the rates were still low, people were overpaying for their houses. And you know yourself that people are stuck now that paid more for their houses than they've got for the value now because of what's happened with the interest rates. The interest rates have climbed dramatically, putting my house payments by themselves, my payment, my mortgage is up October the 4th. My house payment is going up $923 a month from where I was when I took out my mortgage in 21. $923 to keep the same amortization time because of the interest rate. So that there's absolutely no question that the mortgage rate has influenced the pricing of homes in 2023.
Okay. And you questioned the use of the 2022 sales because we're looking at the market value April 1st, 2023. Can you acknowledge from my comparable sheet that the time adjusted sale prices of those is all lower than the actual sale price except for with comp, I think it was comp 4. Yeah, comp 4.
So where do you get I acknowledge that, but where do you get that number? That's not a real number. That's a computerized number that you guys use? Like you haven't substantiated it that those are actual numbers. You don't have any sales in 2023. Why is that? Is that because houses aren't being listed because people aren't selling unless they're in trouble that they're going to lose their homes? People aren't selling their houses because they can't afford to lose the money. So they're trying to hang on.
So it was done with
You can't use a fictitious number from 2022 and go, okay, well, this is what we're using for 2023 because you're just using a thought. You're not using actual sales. Like, why can't you substantiate 2023 sales on the evidence that you provided?
I have to use
Because
what's available.
there are none.
So with the time adjusted sale price, we are looking at resale or market data to determine what that would be. And that is how we determine that. So you're not wrong about finding sales can be very difficult for the actual period there. And that's what I was looking at. So, and
You're
just
right, but there again, you're looking at comparable sales. You're not looking in my neighborhood where I have these influences. Like, it's funny how the retention pond is in there, but the railway tracks aren't. The hydro station isn't in there. 5 doors down from me, that the grass is 3.5 feet high. None of that you took into consideration as a deterrent for people buying homes in my area.
So touching exactly on that, those were actually going to be 2 questions I had for you. So the rail line actually runs behind the houses across the street from you. Is that right?
That's correct.
And then the hydro structure that you mentioned is basically at the corner of Peguis and that rail line?
That's correct. And it's 5 doors down. I'm 5 doors down from the corner.
Yeah. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Bill Hurst, you have questions?
No, I do not.
Is that all?
Yes, I'm just curious. You purchased your home in 2019, is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
And you said that when you purchased your home, part of the purchase price was for furniture? In the
Correct.
home?
Correct.
How much of the purchase price was for furniture?
I had advised Drew that it was around 10,000, value of about $10,000.
Thank you, that's all my questions.
If I can elaborate on that a little bit about that 3 weeks for a place to live, is my house was sold. I had to be out in 3 weeks. I hadn't found a house, and I looked at the cost of trying to move and putting things into storage and trying to get a short-term place to live, and to me it wasn't worth it. So we just ended up purchasing this one. But
Thank you.
anyway.
You were describing the hydro property there. Is that a substation, or is that one of those facilities that looks like a house and actually inside it's got a substation?
Oh yeah, no, it's an actual substation. There's a photo attached in my evidence showing the station. Do you see it there?
Yes, I see it now, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And the area that is overgrown with weeds there, that is part of that hydro lot, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you were.
Sorry, there's a walkway there too from Philip Lee to Peguis. So that area there, I don't know if you can see the walkway in that photo.
Yes.
I don't have it picked up right in front of me. So I'm not sure if that's hydro or the city or one of the same or whatever it is, but.
And you're saying that that has an impact on your property?
Oh, for sure it does. I mean,
what way, can you just repeat that?
Yes, for sure it has an impact. For one, it's a visual thing. For number two, it's a well-known fact about hydro stations and cancer. I mean, even if your next door neighbor has a sloppy house and doesn't cut his grass or doesn't maintain his house, it affects your property value because of the fact people don't want to buy your house if they're going to live next door to somebody that doesn't care, right? So these kinds of things to me, I mean, I'm not saying that that's happening with my neighbor. I'm just saying that this is 5 doors down from my house. So all these things need to be into consideration. And like Drew had mentioned that there's the hydro line is behind the houses across the street. Yes, they are. I don't have full visual of the train, but you still have the noise and you still have the ground shaking when the trains are going by multiple times a day. So I know people look at these things and they're looking for a desirable area. They're looking for, you can't compare a house in my neighborhood with this square footage or whatever with deterrence to an area that has no deterrence, that's maybe all residential and doesn't have the same kind of deterrence that I have.
That makes me question something of the assessor here. Mr. Thiessen, the presence of the retention pond is shown as a land influence. Is that a positive or a negative influence?
Typically, it would be a positive.
Positive. And the fact that this house is across the street from houses that back onto the railway property, is it common that that would not be listed as railway influence? It would only be the ones that directly back onto the railway?
That is common, yes.
Yeah,
As you
that's
can
all
see,
my
actually, with the 223 Philip Lee, because it's a neighbor that's 2 doors down, and it doesn't have the same thing, so it's the same as this one.
Okay, that's all my questions. Consequently, we have finished with this item on our agenda. Thank you, Mr. Heska, for appearing and giving us your information. We will be deliberating this morning, arriving at our conclusions, and then sending you an order in the mail as soon as we can.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to add one comment if I could, because I wasn't really sure of this on where it's had the influence of the pond, that it's a positive. Have a look at one of the photos that I sent with the sidewalk alongside the pond of the goose droppings all over the sidewalk. Have a look, and so you'll see the parks maintenance. I never took any pictures of the goose droppings in my yard because they fly right over my house to go to the pond. So how that can be assessed as a positive, I have no idea. Once you have a look at the picture, you'll see what I'm talking about. But I strongly suggest that you have a look at that when considering whether that pond is a positive or a negative.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. All right,
Thank
we
you.
will.
Sorry, I'm just going to, thank you, Mr. Heshka. Have a good day. Okay, there we go, Mr. Chair.
All right, so we have a person present for. That's number 8.
Mr. Peak,
Yes,
am I pronouncing it correctly?
good enough. I'm used to them all.
Okay. So I'll just get you to stand, Mr. Peak, so we can affirm you. Please state your full name.
Andre Pitts.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Have a seat, sir.
Second, to bring up the information. Mr. Thiessen, your information, please.
Okay, thank you. The subject property is located at 1622 Concordia Avenue East, roll number 040069788200. It's in the Grassy neighborhood. It is a bi-level build, single-family dwelling built in 1987, 1088 square feet, full basement that is finished, has 2 full bathrooms and 1 half bathroom, has central air conditioning, has a detached multi-car garage, has a lot size of 4341 square feet, and it has land influences of a back lane, a bus route, and medium traffic. The comparables are all located in the Grassy neighborhood. They're all bi-level builds, single-family dwellings built between 1986 to 1988. Living areas between 1012 square feet to 1188 square feet. They all have full basements with finished basements. Comp 1 also has the full part area, so it means basically that it has some sort of addition or something that has just a crawl space beneath it. And the bathroom counts are fairly similar. There's a little bit of variability as shown on the comps sheet. There are fireplaces at comp 1 and comp 4, not in comp 2 and comp 3. And the garages vary a little bit between the properties. Comp 1 and 3 have detached multi-car garage, and comps 2 and 4 have attached multi-car garages. The lot sizes are between 4825 square feet to 6419 square feet. They all do have land influences, except for comp 2 has none. Comp 1 has the back lane and external corner influence. Comp 3 has an internal corner influence, and comp 4 has an external corner influence. The time adjusted sale prices range between $375,500 to $411,500. And the time adjusted sale prices per square foot range between $346.38 per square foot to $383.54 per square foot. The current assessed value is $382, and that would be $351.10 per square foot, and I believe that value is supported. Thank you.
Mr. Applicant, do you have questions of the assessor about this information?
No, not about this information. I do not question the process or the procedures or the comparables. That's all that I'm not not in the market, so I don't know what the prices are. I know they went down since 2021, 2022 period, but that's all right. So no, I don't question the comparables. What I do
Okay.
question,
Well, if you're gonna present evidence, we'll have that in a minute. It's just if you have any questions.
No, I don't.
Yes, okay, in that case, I'll turn to the panel members. Ms. Reppel?
I'm just wondering about comparison 4, which I see is also a bi-level. It's newer than the subject property. It's got more square feet in the house. It's got a full basement that's finished. It's got a multiple attached garage, whereas the subject property has a multiple detached garage. And I see that the sale price is less than the assessment for the subject property. I'm just wondering why you selected that as a comparison.
Well, I was looking for good bi-level comps that are nearby. In this case, I did have to go a little bit earlier than I would have liked looking at this November 2020 sale. So there's a larger time adjustment for the fact that there was a huge change in the market between that time to April 1st of 2023, which is why you see the large discrepancy in the sale price of $349,900 to the actual time adjusted sale price of $411,500.
Okay, thank you.
May, that change in market that you're referring to was what?
Increase in the market value of properties
Increase,
typically.
okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Billinghurst?
No questions.
Relative to other cases this morning, where the time adjusted sale price, correct me if I'm wrong, but was sometimes and relatively frequently lower than the sale price, so the adjustment was downwards. This adjustment is upwards. What is the difference in this case?
Yeah, so as I alluded to previously, what is the case is it depends on when the sales did occur. There was an increase in the market for a certain period, and then after that period, there began to be a little bit of a decrease up to April 1st of 2023. So that's where you might see this difference between increases versus decreases.
So the farther back that you were going with sales, the more likely we are to see an increased adjusted sales value relative to sale price. But closer up to the reference date, if you had a bunch of sales that were close to it, the opposite would obtain. Is that correct?
Yes, but at the same time, the sale price would probably be higher at that point too, because there was the change in the market up to that point.
Right. So there is a traffic influence on Concordia Avenue. And obviously the other properties don't have that same sort of influence. How much of an influence on value is that?
It's difficult to actually quantify it for a certain value. In this case, I don't really have other comparables on Concordia that would suggest what the actual true value of it would be. I couldn't really find anything, which is unfortunate. I would have loved to have had that information, but I don't really have it here.
The computer system quantifies what that influence is and applies that to assessment?
It would be a negative influence for sure, yes.
Yeah. And it applies a certain percentage?
I don't know exactly how the value is determined on what it actually calculates, but there would be a negative influence for having the medium traffic influence for sure.
Is there on-street parking on Concordia?
I believe so, yes.
Not in the,
No?
it's a snow road. Snow, there is, but in the wintertime it's a snow road, so,
Okay,
and that's an ongoing issue because there's just no way to park, in the wintertime.
All right, those are my questions. So we will turn to you, staff and Ben, to provide us with your information, please.
Yes, so I was going to bring up the traffic matter because it lists my property as having medium traffic. It was light traffic 35 years ago. It was medium traffic maybe 10 years ago. I don't know. I mean, yes, Main Street is high traffic. It's not that type of a traffic, but and gentleman before me mentioned it too. It's a shortcut now between Grassy and 59 and Costco and Regent and that area there. So traffic is much heavier in your comparables. Just when it comes to traffic, it's much heavier. It's much heavier, quite a bit heavier. Non-stop basically now. So that's all I was going to say about that. That the maybe that I don't know what's the next level is. Like if it's high and Main Street is also high, then no, it's not that high. But it's significantly higher in the last little bit, especially with the multi-family dwellings being built and stuff. There's so many people in the area now that it's traffic is something else. However, as I mentioned before, I don't have an issue with comparables. What was used. Let me just say that this is probably my 4th time appearing this Board of Revisions since 2000s. And I don't know why it can, from my perspective, I don't know why it can be fixed once and for all. Because if we are going to use, with regards to my property, if we are going to use the comparables that were used, shouldn't that same percentage, the increase of assessed value, apply to all houses on my property? All identical houses on my property, on my street. So in my block, within half a block actually, there is exactly 4 identical houses as mine, with identical features. In fact, the one closest to me has a fireplace, which I don't.
I'd stop you there. You were then referencing their assessed values. Is that correct? Rather than having brought us sale values?
I don't have sales values.
Yeah, I'm afraid that we cannot look to evidence that is just other assessments.
It's not
But
a question more than evidence, really. Because what I'm questioning is, if we are going to look at comparables that were presented, and we are looking at my property at 1622, and we decide we should increase the value of my property by X. If we have 3 other houses on my street, we will increase their assessed value, but by X minus 5. Why not by X? That's all I'm asking.
Okay, well, essentially, I think I'll turn to Mr. Thiessen. You explained it's sufficient detail, but high enough level, the reassessment process and how the assessments are derived in general terms for the properties in an area such that there is equity amongst them.
So they're all value based off of mass appraisal, and that uses all the sales that occurred throughout the city prior to a given reference date, in this case, April 1st of 2023, to determine what the value for any given property would be. So it's just using new sales data every 2 years for the reassessment cycle, and that's how the value is determined.
Now you've said across all the city, is there a specific reference though to a particular area to ensure that what you're picking up on with the assessments is reflective of the market in that area.
Certainly, the variables that go into the model would be the determining factor on what actually comes out of the model. So neighborhood would be a major factor.
Well, then the proof of the pudding, the courts have said, and the legislation says, are the sales. The market is the sales. The market is not the assessments, it's the sales. So in order to really determine whether yours is correct or not, equitable or not, you have to point to sales in order to do that rather than assessments. The other thing that is quite fair game for an applicant to tell us is there might be something perhaps wrong about their own property that has not been reflected by the assessor, like maybe there's a cracked basement or something like that. So we look to what's the specific information about a property as well, in order for us to evaluate what will be the correct assessment of the property. Is there any of that sort of information that you can give us rather than a comparison to other assessments?
No, basically and I don't have access to that information, but after appeal last time, over the phone, my assessment was changed. Let's just say that during the last assessment, my property was a little bit less than two of the identical properties on my street, by maybe $5,000, $7,000, $8,000. It was less. Now we are assessing, we are a new assessment cycle. We go by certain comparables that should apply to all identical houses on my street. We are not talking other side of the city. We're talking about within half a block of each other. And I end up quite a bit higher. So in fact, I have a map here, a printed map of my street, only of my street. My house is not the biggest, it's not my yard is not the biggest, my house is not the biggest, it's not the nicest, it's actually pretty average. But yet if you look at the map, it's the highest, it has highest appraised value.
But that is something that we cannot look at. We are, for our hands are tied, we must look at sales rather than assessments. So how your assessment relates to another one is just not something that is within our bailiwick. We must look to sales. You said a few minutes ago that you don't have access to that. I would suggest you talk to Mr. Thiessen, if you wish, about how you do access the sales, so that you can, in the future, if you wish, bring sales forward yourself that might substantiate your argument, as opposed to the ones that the assessor brought.
Okay, it just I wish you could understand how frustrating it is for me to come back every 4 years. And so I would appeal with the same arguments. I in fact have a copy of my older appeal here. The board agreed with me. The price was lower. The next assessment comes, and I was told last time, 2022, that actually, when we assessed your value this time, we didn't look at the value of your assessed value before you appealed. We looked at it before you appealed. We didn't take into consideration after appeal. So that's why the assessed value now is higher. And then she changed it over the phone. Okay. Now we are in 2024. And I look at it and I'm like, okay, so did they not look at the value that was actually assessed after I talked to someone on the phone? It's just that it can't, seems like the city can't fix it for 25 years now. Why do I have to appeal 4 times, you know?
Yeah. Thank you.
And the same story every time.
Any other questions?
I'm just wondering, what happened with your last assessment?
So the last assessment came in much like this one. Again, it was higher, whereas it was lower before. So there was a number listed on the brochure. I called that number and I ended up talking to an assessor, and I think it was a lady assessor, and she says, yes, I see your point. Looks like we looked at the value before appeal instead of after appeal, so I'm going to correct that. And then she changed it. I didn't have to come in front of you guys. She changed it over the phone. But I would think that if it's changed once, it should stay in the system. But to me, when I look at it again this time, maybe didn't stay in the system, you know?
So this is the fourth time you've appealed?
This is a fourth time I am in front of you. It wasn't an appeal, it was a discussion over the phone before, where I was able to fix the issue. I tried it this time. It didn't work.
You spoke with the assessor prior to.
I spoke with two, I spoke to Drew as well. He called me 3 weeks ago asking what my points were, and so I told him that, you know, this is what seems to be the case this time again, and I hope we can fix it over the phone so that I don't have to take up your time. But he didn't, so here I am. And it's really frustrating.
No, that's it.
Yeah, and I have no question. So thank you very much for appearing, for providing us with your information. We will be deliberating and providing an order as quickly as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for your patience.
Thanks for your time.
So that brings us to two items in the docket for which we do not have an applicant present. And we have the option of hearing these items in the absence of the applicant or not hearing them. And we need to deliberate on that, so we will take a short recess in order to accomplish that deliberation. Very much. Mr. Thiessen, we have recessed to determine whether we will hear these remaining applications in the absence of the applicants, and we will do so. So we will begin then with item number 5, and that is 126 Spring Meadow Crescent. Could we have your information, please?
Yes, thank you. So the subject property is located at 126 Spring Meadow Crescent. It is located in the Meadows neighborhood. Roll number 0900618220. It's a one-story build, single-family dwelling built in 1985. Living area of 1138 square feet. Full basement that is finished. 1 full bathroom, 2 half bathrooms, 1 shower. Has central air conditioning, has a attached multi-car garage, has a lot size of 5698 square feet, and land influences of commercial adjacent. And the comparables are all laid out on the comparable sheet that I have provided you. And the current assessed value is at 423,000 or 371.70 per square feet. And I request that the panel confirm the assessment.
You give us a little bit of information about the location of these. There's nothing that's directly nearby. Can you speak to the location of the comparables?
They are all in the Meadows neighborhood. Comp 1 lacks any kind of influences at all. Comp 2 has bus route influences and a light traffic influence, and then Comp 3 has a internal corner influence.
Okay, questions, Ms. Rempel? Or maybe Lola?
I know I'm good. I'm just wondering about the subject property. It says it has a commercial influence.
Yes.
Do you know by any chance what that might be?
I had it written down, but I think I deleted it, but I can pull that up right in just a moment. So it is, I can't tell for sure what this is. I think it's a retail. I can't tell for sure.
Okay,
I think it's a retail complex.
thank you.
Ms. Billion?
No.
So in this one, going back to the question I asked previously, the time adjusted sale price. For the older sales here, like the 2021. That has gone up, but the November 2022. That one has gone down, that being that peak and. The upward slope and then the downward slope of the market that you were referring to before.
Correct.
The number 4 has significantly smaller lot. Yet the sale price was not that much different. Any reason that you can surmise of why that would be?
I can't really say for sure. They're all in fairly similar condition that I could see. So I'm not 100% sure what that reasoning would be.
Okay, that is all my questions. So that then draws this one to a conclusion, that being item number 5. We'll move on to item number 6. Give me a moment to bring it up. Beachside Bay, 80 Beachside Bay. All right, could we have your evidence on this one, please?
Yes. So the subject property is located at 80 Beachside Bay, roll number 0400443800, located in the Meadows neighborhood. One-story build, single-family dwelling built in 1993, living area of 1572 square feet, has a full basement that is finished, has 2 full bathrooms, 1 half bathroom, 1 shower, has a central air conditioning, has 2 fireplaces, 1 electric and 1 gas, has an attached multi-car garage, and has a sunroom. The lot size is 8038 square feet, and it has a retention pond influence. So it does have that walkway out behind and between the house. Oh, it's not actually a walkway, actually. In this case, it is a green space that leads out onto the pond. The current assessed value is 545,000, and that's 346.69 per square foot. And the comps are all in the Meadows neighborhood except for comp 3. The rest of the comp information is available for you there. I will note that the land influences, only one of them has the pond influence at all, and that is a pond adjacent, so it backs directly onto the pond, and that is comp 1. The others do not have any kind of pond influence at all. So they would have negative value relative to a pond property. And I would request that the panel confirm the assessment.
No questions.
Yes. Am I assuming correctly that the subject property has 2 full baths, which none of the other properties have 2 full baths? It has 2 fireplaces versus 1 or none, and it has a sunroom where the others have none.
All of that is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So the subject has an assessment per square foot of $346 per square foot. The highest one is amongst the comps is 392, but then the remainder of them are all lower than the subject property. Why is it that does not compel a drop in the assessment?
So as I was mentioning previously, this property does have the pond influence, backs onto the green space that goes back onto the pond. None of comps 2, 3, or 4 have that at all.
So that is a very significant factor then in the value of the residential properties.
Yes.
Your number 3 is very far afield.
Yeah.
Why so far afield?
I was looking for, ideally, I initially was looking for pond comps. I couldn't find any good ones besides comp 1. After that, I expanded into just looking for similar size, similar upgrades, and that kind of thing, in order to get an idea of what it would be like if it wasn't on the pond, and then just kind of reflecting the fact that there is the pond to count on as well.
And that was the next nearest one that met those criteria. There was nothing else that was below those railroad tracks, for instance.
That was the best I could find.
What is the street? It's something other Parkway, but I can't read the whole word.
Sorry, what?
There's a major street that say comp 4 fronts onto.
It's on to
Something or other Parkway.
Edward Parker, I think. Edward Turner.
Is that a major street?
I don't think it's a major street, but I'm not 100% sure. It looks like it kind of dead ends here as well. I don't know for sure what the case is there though.
And there's no traffic influence on that one?
Well, Sandpoint backs onto it, and there is no traffic influence, so no.
Comp number 1 has bus route light traffic. Comp number 1. So that street that it fronts onto has a traffic influence. It's
Yes.
light with a traffic influence.
Yes.
Why would that be? It looks like just on residential street. Like any-
It's I would assume that the situation is that it is a fairly major thoroughfare within the area. If it does have the bus route, that would kind of make sense.
All right, those are all my questions. Any other?
No,
questions?
I'm fine, thank you.
All right, well then that concludes this item. Thank you very much, Mr. Thiessen. That then draws to a close this hearing. We have heard all of the matters on the docket, and we will deal with these in deliberation accordingly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thiessen.